Okay, we still have one tiny issue here in Posts component. So in all the methods in this class, where we subscribe to our observables, we're working with a response object. And as I told you before, we don't want to work with the response object in our components because we added this service to encapsulate all the details about working with HTTP services on the backend. So here, ideally, instead of getting a response object and then calling the JSON method on it, I want to get an array of objects. So let's see how we can do this. Let's go back to our data service. Here in the getAll method, I'm going to use one of the observable operators called map. With the map operator, we can transform the items in an observable. Let me show you how it works. First of all, on the top, we need to import this observable operator. Because as I explained before, these observables have lots of operators and they are not available by default. This is because they increase the size of our application's code. So we need to import only the ones that we really need. So here, I'm going to duplicate this line and change catch to map. Now back in getAll method, once we get the observable, we can call the map method. Here we get a response, and then we immediately call response.json. So we're mapping or transforming this response object to an array of JavaScript objects. Okay? So now let's go back to our component. With this change, instead of getting a response here, we get an array of objects. So I'm going to rename this to posts. Okay? Then we don't need to call the JSON method. Now, because the body of this arrow function has only one line of code, we can get rid of these ugly curly braces here. And we should also remove the semicolon. And now we can make this a little bit cleaner by putting all this on one line. So, like this. Look, it's much cleaner than the code we previously had. So now as an exercise, I want you to modify all the methods in this component and replace the response object with the actual JSON object that is returned from the server. So go back in the data service and use the map operator in all the methods in this class. Now here's my solution. So here in data service, I'm going to copy this line, map, and simply duplicate it in other methods in this class. So here in the create method, we map the result and also catch any potential errors. Now similarly, in the update method, we're going to map the result and also here in the delete method. Okay, now back in our posts component, in the create post method, instead of getting a response, we get the actual post object that is returned from the server. So I'm going to rename this to new post. And here we can simply access new post.id. Much better. Next, here we have the update post method. So in the subscribe method, instead of getting a response, we get the updated post that is returned from the server. And then we can simply log it on the console. And finally, here in delete post, when we delete an object on JSON placeholder, we don't get anything in the response. So the body of the response is an empty object. So here, we can replace this with empty parentheses. So this is the final result. We have a clean component with good separation of concerns and proper error handling. Now, if you haven't been coding along with me, I've attached the code for this component and our services to this lecture. So download the code and review it on your own.